Hi everyone, back to Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris back with the Aftermath. This is the show we do when the dust has settled from the instant post-match reaction to Newcastle United's latest game, which happened to be a dreadful, embarrassing, pathetic 1-0 defeat to a ragtag bunch of Manchester United misfits at Old Trafford on Boxing Day. The game should never have been played, in my opinion. It was a dreadful fixture anyway, between the Premier League and the TV companies. But that aside, Newcastle United showed up in that game against a Manchester United team that probably would have played in the third round of the FA Cup against a lower league opposition and did enough with the ball to win the game, but had absolutely no cutting edge. I'm going to get stuck right into the problems that Newcastle United are going through and the reasons why I think they're having them in a second. Before I do, a little reminder, if you haven't already, smash subscribe, help get us to the next milestone. We're already over 12,200. Get your teeth right. It's early. 12,200. Thank you so much, everyone who's clicked that button already. We're hopefully going to end the year close to 12,500, which is class. And we've got 500 to go to the next milestone of 13,000. So we really appreciate that. And misery loves company, because we had loads of you in the live chat venting your frustrations. And you're right to vent your frustrations. Look, I know there's still some fans out there who think Eddie Howe can turn water into wine and could stop a speeding train with his super strength. But the truth of the matter is, this is not working. The magic that Eddie Howe used to sprinkle all over this football club is not working. We've had a summer of discontent with Alexander Isak saga, the whole situation. We have not replaced that lad's quality and that lad's creativity and X factor in this side with enough of the same. We haven't done that. This football squad, this team lacks so much creativity. We have absolutely nobody who can just pull something out of nothing. We don't have a James Maddison. We don't have a Jack Grealish. We don't have even a Emile Smith-Rowe or somebody like that for Fulham, or a Morgan Gibbs-White for Forest. These are players that we should have maybe went to go after in the summer. You know, likes of Gibbs-White would have been perfect for Newcastle. He's exactly the type of player that can break those lines, can do something out of nothing, can hit a shot from 25 yards and off the bar, can find that killer pass. Newcastle United are a team full of athletes with very few technicians, and that is how Eddie Howe has built his squad. Now, it tends to used to be our identity, and that was great when we were hurrying teams and pressing them and rushing them and all that kind of stuff, right? But football has changed. This season, we've seen a throwback to tactics that used to be deemed as negative. You know, teams sit in two banks of four. They try and get you with long throws or long punts up the field to go in behind you. That's the way the Premier League has changed this season. That's probably why the Premier League is so crap and it's so concertinaed in, and everybody keeps beating everybody else. Outside of Arsenal, Manchester City, and probably Aston Villa to an extent, everybody else is pretty much shit. You know, they can't seem to string together a collection of wins. And that's why Newcastle United, as I record this, sit in 11th on 23 points and 3 points off being in the top 6 or 7. And then, sorry, I'm too old for that. And then, 3 points off being in, technically a relegation scrap. You know, that's how bad the Premier League is right now. But Newcastle United have had so many opportunities so far this season, particularly away from home, to step up and to perform, and they have dropped the ball on every single possible occasion. We've only scored 7 goals away from home all season, and 4 of them came against Everton. Dreadful, absolutely dreadful Newcastle United. That is horrendous. You're talking about a team that's got over 200 million quid's worth of attacking talent, so to speak, and can't hit water if they fell off a fucking boat. And it's disgraceful. It really, really is. And you've got to look to the manager, because the manager is so wedded to his formation and his tactics that he will not change. And it doesn't matter if things aren't going right, he will not change. He just changes 3 players out for another 3 players who are pretty much similar players in the same formation, in the same system. It hasn't been working for 65, 70 minutes. He does nothing. There's no plan B. There's no plan C. Yesterday was a prime example. Newcastle United controlled most of that game possession-wise, used the ball, knocked it between each other really well. No end product. Nobody took a gamble. Nobody took a shot from range, apart from Lewis Hall, who was the best player on the park, left back, took a shot, hit off the bar. On another day, that goes in and spares Eddie Howe's blushes, and that's exactly what it would have done, spared his blushes, because that Manchester United team were dug in deeper than an Alabama tick. They were shocking. If any Manchester United fan anywhere near my age who watched Manchester United dominate English football with some of the best players players in the world. They used to sign your best players, and then they would go and play for Manchester United. That is a pale resemblance to what I would call a Manchester United team. That was fucking awful. That was a Manchester United team who surrendered possession. That could have been Stoke City. No offense to Stoke, with Tony Pulis in charge in his prime. That's exactly what they did there. Looking for a smash and grab and a 1-0 win. That's exactly what they got. And Newcastle had nobody to come on that pitch to change that game. Now, for starters, he shouldn't have started Nick Voltemada up front, I don't believe. I think that game required a little bit of mobility, especially with them missing their two centre-halves. Visser was the call, but he won't start Visser because in his mind, in his little analytical, data-driven mind, Visser's only got half an hour, so I'll bring him on later. Why don't you start with Visser and get him to half-time, try and get in front of the game 2-0? Because if Barnes and Visser start that game in the first half with the space that was available that Manchester United were giving up, we possibly win that game. Because Barnes is more clinical and Visser's more clinical than both Gordon and Voltemada, and we probably win that game after that. But he didn't do that. He started with Voltemada. He started with Anthony Gordon. I'll get into him in a second. But Nick Voltemada, once again, completely isolated. Nobody getting around him. Anthony Gordon, I don't know what the fuck he was doing. This obviously wasn't a game that Anthony Gordon deemed good enough for him to show up. So weirdly enough, because the whole eyes of the footballing world were watching this game, because it was the only game in town on Boxing Day, you would have thought Gordon might have thought, oh, people are watching me. I better show up. Maybe I'll get a move to a bigger club. Do you know what? Fucking go to a bigger club, Anthony Gordon, because you haven't kicked your own arse for 18 months. A lot of the pundits protect him because he's an England player. He is dog rot. He's shit. He's awful. He's got no end product at all. All he's got is pace, and half the time he's too scared to beat his man. He would barely even run at Darlow most of the game. You know, this guy, you cannot rely on this guy. When the chips are down, he goes missing. You cannot rely on him at all. He's not a good player. He's nowhere near the level people think he is. You know, this guy thinks he's Ryan Giggs in his prime. He couldn't fucking lace Ryan Giggs' shit-stained boot from when he was a kid, let alone in his prime. Anthony Gordon is one of the most overrated players I've seen at this football club in a long time. He showed up 2 years ago and everyone thinks he's fucking class. And this is the problem with Newcastle and some of the fan base as well. We are living in the past. We are living in what we've done, not what we're doing, right? Listen, nobody is taken away from Eddie Howe and those players who, by the way, Anthony Gordon wasn't one of them because the stupid twat got himself sent off against Brighton and he couldn't play in the fucking Carabao Cup final. So don't give Anthony Gordon a free pass. When you need him, he's either suspended or doesn't turn up. So that was that tell you about him. But those players and that manager will forever go down as legend at Newcastle United for winning the Carabao Cup. There is no doubt about that. But that does not act as a force field to protect them from criticism. And it shouldn't do either. When you're seeing lethargic, pointless, useless performances like that week in, week out, when players aren't showing up like Gordon, aren't showing up. Tonali's dropped off a cliff. What has happened to Sandro Tonali? In my opinion, the guy doesn't want to be here. The guy wants to go. Whether he's homesick to go back to Serie A or whether he just thinks I'm too good to play for this lot. And the summer's been awful. We've lost one of the best players in the world at the time and we haven't replaced him with quality. Maybe his head's been turned. Maybe an agent's got in his ear. Something like that. But that Sandro Tonali that we're seeing is not the Sandro Tonali that we have seen. And that's a major issue. And you can't take him out the team effectively because there isn't good enough quality to come in to replace him. Lewis Miley, again, was brilliant at right back. Shouldn't even be playing there, right? I think Howney should change the formation, which I'll get into in a second. But Lewis Miley, comfortable on the ball, calm on the ball. When he ventures further up the pitch, he's a goal threat. He had a shot towards the end. On another day, Lewis Miley smashes out in the top bins. And again, he spares Eddie Howe's blushes. Eddie Howe called him out, praised him for his performance in the post-match press conference. And, when two 19-year-olds, a 19 and a 20-year-old, are consistently outshining your Brazilian midfielder, your Italian midfielder, your German international, your England international, your Swiss international, former Swiss international who's in his mid-30s or whatever, there's a big problem. You have to start asking questions of those senior players. Where the fuck are you? Where the fuck are you when we need you? These two young lads are dragging your asses along with them in a game. You're not doing enough, right? Bruno Guimaraes came into the game a little bit more. He's our most creative player. This squad is massively, massively lacking creativity, as I said before, because all Howe wanted to do was have runners and athletes, right? And that's great to an extent until a team sits in a bank and says, break us down. Because you can run at them as much as you want. They'll see you out of play. They'll close you down 2-on-1. They'll head balls away. They'll boot balls away, whatever it is. And then they'll get you on a smash and grab from a set piece. That's fine if you want athletes anyhow. That's great. If you're fucking running an Olympic relay team, you're not. You're running a football team. You need creativity. And that's why the teams at the top of the table who are breaking teams down have creativity. Man City have Xerxes. But, what was he? 13 million quid or something like that from the French league? Why didn't we look for a player like that? Because Eddie Howe doesn't want those players. He wants players like Jacob Ramsey, who's a good runner. What the fuck else can he do? Zero creativity from Jacob Ramsey. Awful performance from him. People keep calling for this lad to come in the midfield. What has he done to convince you as a Newcastle fan so far that this kid is the answer in midfield? What has he done? And people can talk about the shape as much as they want. I get that. If we're more on the front foot, Jacob Ramsey looks like a more, engaging player and a more appealing player. But we ain't good enough to do that. We don't have Tillemans and Onana behind him to let him go off running. We don't have John McGinn working his nuts off. We don't have those players. Those players aren't in our side. Aston Villa, hands down right now, top to toe, are a better team than we are, and they deserve to get that Champions League place. We've got no chance of getting that Champions League place. I was working out the fixtures there. An optimistic prediction of fixtures. I've got us finishing on 56 points. Last season, that got you, I think, 8th or 9th. I don't know what it'll get you this season. You might just sneak in to a European place, but that's an incredibly optimistic finish. But every time I think Newcastle are going to get a result, they fucking shit the bed. And that's exactly what I thought last night. I thought a draw was in the cards because neither team can hold on to a lead. But Manchester United got in front with a smash and grab. It's a great strike. Ramsdale should do a bit better, in my opinion. But you know what? So should Jacob Ramsey. He should be out there closing that player down. Zero intensity, zero smelling of danger from Jacob Ramsey. I thought he was poor, very poor. Sandro Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes, they were trying to do 3 people's jobs, not 2 people's jobs. And I think things need to change. I'll get into the shape in a minute. But then Manchester United dug in and basically played for a 1-0 win. Now, you can call that negative, and I will call that negative. If I'm a Manchester United fan, and I've watched them for years, and I'm my age, which is in my 40s, by the way, you cheeky bastards who say 50s. I work in sales. That's what it does to you. Stay clear. But seriously, if you're a Manchester United fan of a period, you're not happy watching that kind of performance. You'd be thinking we should be acting Newcastle. You listen to Roy Keane and Gary Neville in the studio, and they're from a bygone era of Manchester United, where Manchester United used to go to teams foot on the throat. It was 3, 4, 5, 6. They wouldn't stop until the team was done. It was like the Simpsons, stop, he's already dead. But Manchester United don't do that anymore because they're not good enough as a side. They're missing their best players. But Newcastle offered nothing going forward outside of Lewis Hall and Lewis Miley, who had the 2 best attempts and were 2 of the best players on the pitch. They were terrible. Static. Nick Voltemade looked static. The flicks weren't going to anybody because nobody was there to catch on to the flick. Murphy did nothing, bar a couple of balls in the box. Anthony Gordon, flat as to the sea, doesn't turn up unless he can be arsed. For me, if Newcastle are thinking about selling another player for PSR, look no further than Anthony Gordon. He's not turned up for 18 months. Get rid. But as long as this manager's here, and I think he'll be here till the end of the season, there's a lot of talk about the manager, a lot of talk about whether he should be gone, whether talk about who would come in. This manager's going nowhere, guys. I hate to burst your bubble. He is going nowhere until at least the end of the season. We are not going to finish in a European place. I'm calling that right now. I said it weeks ago, and I'm doubling down. We will not finish in a European space. We're not consistent enough. We're not good enough. We haven't got the quality in the side. Unless they go out in January and buy either a new goalkeeper who can use his feet and his hands, or a really creative midfielder who's capable of playing in between those lines and doing something out of nothing and winning your games on their own. I mean, he only had one creative player, Eddie Howe, and he flogged him at the first chance he had, and Alan said maximum. Was Maxi the best player? No. Was he inconsistent at times? Yes. But in a game like that, where a team's banked in and you can't get anything, Maxi's the kind of player who would drop a shoulder, do 4 players, and smash one of the top bins and get you a point. But we don't have a player in the squad, never mind the starting 11. There's no player in the squad to do that. None of these players have any creativity or ingenuity or innovation just to pull something out of their arse. And I know that player in the world of football is kind of slowly becoming extinct because of the way the modern day coaching is. But you need a player like that. Every team in the league has some player who can do something like that. Bar Newcastle, in my opinion, West Ham have got Paqueta or Jared Bowen. Fulham have got Harry Wilson or Emile Smith-Rowe. Brentford have got what the guys at Norsgaard. They've got him. Aston Villa have got Buendia. They've got they've got Ollie Watkins. They've got players like that who can just pull something out of nothing. Brighton have got Minter and players like that. Our lads, our attacking lads, haven't turned up all season. Harvey Barnes is the most informed player we've got with 7 goals, and he's dropped at the first chance Eddie Howe gets to stick in Anthony, I'm going to run all day but produce nothing, Gordon. I don't understand that, and he's not challenged by people for that. I watched the Geordie Journos top lads, and to be fair to them, Liam made a good point about getting criticised about not asking questions. Those boys do ask questions. Both Dom and Jordan, in my opinion, do ask difficult questions of the manager. His press conference was bizarre. Jordan asked about performances and Eddie Howe called it irrelevant. It's not irrelevant, Eddie Howe, because your performances aren't yielding results. So it is relevant. It's 100% relevant, but he's trying to swat it away. He looks like a man who's backpedaling because he knows things aren't working and he's run out of ideas as to how to change it, because he's the man who signed all these players. He's the man who signed Anthony Elanga. He's the man who chased Jacob Ramsey for 2 years and signed him, and these players aren't producing. Newcastle have had an awful summer transfer window, lost their best player arguably, and not replaced his quality with anywhere near the quality. I don't blame Nick Votamard. I think given the fact he's got 8 goals with the scraps that he's been fed is quite remarkable, really. If you gear the team up to give this kid the ball, he will score. If we had somebody who could whip a ball in on a regular occasion, like a David Beckham, I'm not going to say David Beckham, but somebody of that magnitude who could find that lad with delivery or get around him, a busy, fast winger who could get around him, get beyond him, he would look a lot more of a threat. The way he drops in the hole, links up, flicks the ball around the corner. He does need to have more of a striker's instinct to get into the box. But you can't say Votamard has been a flop, given his goal record with what he's been fed. Malik Chow has been a great signing, but outside of that, they've been terrible. Anthony Elanga, one of the worst signings we've ever seen, never mind in the takeover era. Visser injured as soon as he signed. That's a bad signing. You can say he might come good, but so far, it's a bad signing. And Aaron Ramsdale, questionable as a goalkeeper. We all said he's great with his feet. Let's get him in the head of Pope. But there's a lot of goals that he's got his hand to that just seem to be going through his paper mache glove into the back of the net. And I don't understand what's going on. The back four is too old. The midfield has lost its sparkle. Joe Linton is totally tailed off. He looks slower. He loses the ball too much. The aggression that he had is now turned into silly fouls, that give teams opportunities, some set pieces or long throws. That's not good enough for Newcastle United. We need better than that. Lewis Miley's emerged as a good player, and he can be a utility player too, which is a good thing. But this football club right now looks completely lost at sea. This season is not going to be like Eddie Howe's previous seasons, and it's a big test of loyalty from PIF to this manager as to where they sit with thinking this manager is the man to take us forward to the next level of where we need to be. And whether you like it or not, when you finish 4th, 7th, 5th, and win a trophy, the pressure then increases from upstairs to do that again or do better, because that's what football's all about. It's not about standing still. It's about progressing and progressing and progressing. And when the PIF talk about this being a long-term project and one they're fully behind and all that stuff, and the CEO saying ridiculous things like we want to win the league in 4 years, which we're never going to do with this setup at all, in my opinion, right? Then there is going to be pressure on the manager. But I don't think that this football club finishes in the European spaces at the end of the season. We're not going to win a trophy because City will dump us out the Carabao Cup. First chance to get. And the FA Cup looks tricky against Bournemouth. It's a bogey team for us. I don't even feel confident with that either. But Newcastle United can't win away from home for the remaining games of the season. We are in trouble. We are in big trouble. My optimistic finish there had us winning a few away games, which so far we've been incapable of doing. So going back to the point of the formation before I finish this video, Eddie Howe, one of the biggest problems with Eddie Howe, his 2 biggest problems is his over loyalty to players who are aged out. They're not quick enough. They're not robust enough. They're not able to play with the level of intensity that they used to play. That's a problem. The whole back four is in their 30s, more or less. Outside of Livramento, who's got injury problems, Botman has got injury problems, and Lewis Hall, who's had injury problems. So that's a major issue for Newcastle. There's the robustness and the ability to stay fit in games. That's a major problem. That's not being addressed. People still talking about Jamal Lascelles. That's a major problem for me. Why is he even still at the football club? Should have been sold ages ago. The midfield started to tail out because Joe Linton's now aging past that point where he's no longer effective enough in that midfield. Tonali's dropped off a cliff. Has his head been turned? If his head's been turned, sell him. I hate to say it. He's one of the best players we've had in a black and white shirt in my generation, probably not people's generations. But if he doesn't want to be here and he's not putting the effort in, sell him. Sell him, get the cash and reinvest. And that's how you do it, because that's what you do with football teams. I was watching the Sky Sports documentary about Alan Shearer's transfer from Blackburn to Newcastle way back in the day. And a lot of the Blackburn fans even then said that if he doesn't want to play for us, sell him, get the money. We'll find Alan Shearer, we'll find another one. And that's how you've got to be as a football club. You can't be held to ransom by these players. Had there been a bit more like that with Alexander Isak, we may have signed a player more suited to the system than we would have done panicking and going out and get Vissa for 55 million quid and Nick Votamorda for 69 because we were desperate to get a centre forward in because we knew we were in the shit. You know, Willis Sula wasn't a great buy by the looks of it. That was a poor buy. There's probably players in lower league positions that maybe would have been a better investment than Willis Sula potentially, but we'll not get into all of that. But the big issue for me with Eddie Howe right now is his over loyalty to players, as I said, but also his inability to change and break away from the formation that he appears wedded to. This 4-3-3 thing is not working, right? We don't even have the players now to play it because there's too many injuries in the side. For starters, the goalkeeper, right? Stick with your goalkeeper. I think Nick Pope's coming back in because Ramsdale, I think, has showed enough shakiness to probably come out of this side. I think for all of Pope's failings, he's better at collecting crosses. He's bigger in the goal. He's a better shot stopper. So get Nick Pope back in the side ASAP. Now, the formation that I would rather he plays with the players that are fit right now is, Mark, maybe throw it up on the screen right now. I would rather play a 3-5-2. Now, you might go mad and say, oh my God, kind of what you doing there, Chris? I hate three at the back, right? But needs must, right? You know, if Botman can somehow get fit, throw him in the back three, then we're sorted, right? But at the minute with the players that we've got fit, I'd have Malik Chow, Fabian Schär, and young Alex Murphy. Give him a chance. Put him on. He looked all right when he came on the other day. Give him a chance, Eddie Howe. He's been in and around the first team for fucking ages. The kid looks like he's got a little bit of ability, a little bit of speed, ability to defend. Get him in there. Play them three at the back. Wing backs. You've got no choice but Jacob Murphy on the right and Lewis Hall, who's excellent, by the way, on the left. Now, if we don't get Champions League, there'll be teams sniffing around Lewis Hall. You bet your fucking bottom dollar. Lewis Hall's a Newcastle fan by birth, and he seems like a top kid. But if Champions League comes calling, he's in England regular and he thinks he's going to get more of a chance being an England team playing Champions League, he'll fucking go because that's what players do. So I'd play them two as wing backs. I'd put Lewis Miley in the midfield with Sandro Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes. Control the midfield. Have the ball, use the ball, let Bruno push further up. He's our only creative outlet. So have Sandro Tonali and Miley maybe in behind in a double pivot midfield and let Bruno get up the pitch. And then I'd have Nick Votamorda and Harvey Barnes behind him in a free roll, causing chaos. Barnes going right, Barnes going left, tucking in, shooting, passing. Because Barnes is the most creative winger that we have right now. He's the one with the most end product. Gordon isn't good enough. You know, there's too many journalists that are in love with Anthony Gordon, probably because he's got a good relationship with him and have interviews and all that. This kid has not shown up enough for Newcastle United. He does not warrant getting in my starting lineup. So that's formation number one that I'd change to. That would have worked a lot better last night. That might have yielded some results. Players around Nick Votamorda potentially would have got us the goal that we needed to. The other formation is going stick with the back four, you know, so you still got Lewis Miley, Chow, Schär, and Hall, you know, and then you kind of have Nick Votamorda in a number 10 role behind Johan Vissa. That's the team. I'd still have Harvey Barnes on the left-hand side. Gordon ain't getting in my side. I don't know why he's getting in Eddie Howe's because he's not performing, in my opinion. He really isn't. Runs around all day but does nothing. The way he ignored the overlaps of Lewis Hall yesterday was horrendous as well. If that's an England winger, fuck me sideways. I've got a chance of getting in the next squad. He was dreadful, absolutely dreadful. But there needs to be a change in this formation because what you're doing, Eddie, is not working. And the sign of madness, the definition of madness is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. It's not going to happen. You know, if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result. This is not working. Certainly away from home and even at home, we've been poor. We've chanced our way through games, last minute headers, you know, last minute winners, teams coming back onto us, a good first half, a dreadful second half where we've just managed to do enough to squeak over the line. Newcastle United have not been good this season. We haven't been good at all in the Premier League. In the Champions League, there's been some more quality performances, but even the Champions League, there's been some poor performances. We were awful at Bayer Leverkusen. A 19-year-old lad had to come and get us back in the game. And had we have more in-game management, more discipline in the game, we'd have stayed in that game, we'd have won that game. We'd probably be through in the Champions League right now. We've got massive Champions League fixtures coming up, you know, with PSG and PSV on the horizon. You know, that's not a home banker either. Newcastle United on home and dry. I saw people in our comments on the post-match last night said, oh, well, we're through to the next round of the Champions League. We're not. We're not through the next round of the Champions League yet. That's not guaranteed. Newcastle's still got stuff to do to get there. But this is not good enough by the manager. It's not good enough by the players. This manager, he assembled this squad of players. He's the one who brought these players here. There's still players here from pre-takeover 4 years later where you've qualified for the Champions League twice. And that's not good enough. That's not good enough. He has not rotated this team enough. He's not bought in key positions when needed to. He's been obsessed with these Premier League proven players who are maybe coming from where they've been up here, maybe at the peak of their times and then slipped back down. Jacob Ramsey looks half the player he was at Aston Villa. Anthony Elanga looks nowhere near the player he was at Nottingham Forest. There's players on the continent that we could have signed. Now, that's the word coming out of the upstairs, the new sporting director. We're going to sign players from the continent, but they're talking about, young, hungry players. That's code for we're going to sign a player like Yankuba Minter, we're going to loan him out to somewhere, and he's never going to play for us. We're getting linked to Keith Schmidt, who's drawn similarities with Kevin De Bruyne, a lad who can play between the lines, break defenses with passes. If we sign him, he goes into the fucking team because we need that creativity, or at least he's on the bench. Don't send him off on loan back to Alkmaar or some other fucking team. But that seems to be what Newcastle think they're going to do. We're going to be a great team in 7 years' time, but not right now. But all these young players that were signed, doesn't matter how much the star for the under-21s, Howe does not pick them. He does not take a chance on them. You got young Leo Shahar on the bench there, England fullback through different levels. Give the kid a chance. Give him 10 minutes. That game yesterday, Manchester United were zero threat of scoring a goal, apart from when Fabian Schär decided to lose his head altogether and let Dalot run past him. They were not a threat to score a goal. Leo Shahar could have come in that game. Murphy could come in that game. He could have pushed Miley into midfield and try and control the game a bit more and make something happen. At least Miley's got a shot on him from range, which was sore. That could have been what changed the game. But this manager just stands on the sideline, looks completely forlorn, and doesn't have a plan. And there'll be people in this comments, the happy clappers and the Eddie Kool-Aid swigging brigade, that think this manager is completely exempt of criticism because of the force field of a Carabao Cup win. Sorry, that's not happened. That's small time. That's tin pot. Leicester City, Claudio Ranieri won the league. That is the most amazing achievement that football club has ever been through. And every single Leicester fan you talk to will say that they love Claudio Ranieri, and they always will. But he had to get sacked when he got sacked because the team was tailing off. They lost Mahrez, they lost Kante, but they tailed off. They absolutely tailed off. If you think about the similarities, we lost Isak, right? We lost Sean Longstaff, maybe not a similar level as Kante, but we lost Isak. Other players have just completely retreated into themselves. And this happens with a lot of football clubs. Players stop listening to the manager. Players stop responding to tactics. And this is what happens. And it annoys me. I hate it in football, right? And I hate the fact I'm even talking about it in association with my football club. But this happens all of the time. Look at Nottingham Forest, prime example, right? Did not play under Ange, could not string two passes together. Sean Dyche comes in, who's a great character, by the way. I love Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche comes in. All of a sudden, the performances are back up. They're keeping goals out. They're scoring goals. They're playing with intensity. They're playing with freedom. Sometimes a change of manager refreshes the air, and players who you thought were disappearing off the stratosphere come back to life. Eddie Howe did it at Newcastle. Players that we thought were dreadful under Steve Bruce, Jacob Murphy being one of them, he reinvigorated those players. But for some reason, this has stagnated. This has grown stale, and these players are not responding to whatever this manager is asking them to do. And that's a problem, because if he's not got the balls to drop them and put other players in those positions, I don't care how old those players are. They could be 18, 19 years old. If those players like Anthony Gordon are showing up and putting in performances like they did against Sunderland, like they did in that game, pointless, useless performances, right? Put somebody else in there. But you can't keep dropping your informed players for your players who have previously done well for you, who continue to produce nothing. That means questions that you've asked to the manager. The manager's not answering any questions. He's swerving at like Neo in the Matrix, dodging bullets. And some of the journalists are asking tough questions, and you can tell that because this form is not good enough. Newcastle would probably be 14th by the time the weekend fixtures are finished. And I don't see Newcastle breaking away from where they are right now. That positive 56-point prediction there, is about as good as we're going to be. And we'll be lucky if that gets us 10th this season. And I'm going to say that right now. So you can forget about European football. And by stretch of that, you're going to have to look at people like Sandro Tonali, Tino Livramento, all looking to move in the summer because of no Champions League football. Bruno may be different because Bruno seems to be cut from different cloth. But those players, they can all be moved on. We have signed poorly in the summer. We haven't addressed the lack of creativity in this team. Can we do it in January? We could. Will Eddie Howe do it? No, he won't, because you'll go and sign somebody who's big and fast and strong and can run all day from, because he seems to completely undervalue the ability of having a bit of a maverick, a bit of a something out of nothing type player in the squad. Doesn't need to start every game, but have him in the squad. I was one of the advocates of trying to get Jack Grealish on loan in the summer. Look what he's done for Everton, the points he's got Everton so far, and the assists that he's got. Jack Grealish is a player like that. Get him the ball, skip past 4 or 5 players, slip in a striker, put one in the top bins, something out of nothing. That kind of a player would have been perfect for us in the squad. He wouldn't have to start every week, but he would have been in the squad because our wingers are producing nothing. Our midfield is workmanlike. They're not producing anything at the moment. And it's really, really concerning. And I don't see how this gets addressed. It doesn't get addressed with Instagram apologies. It doesn't get addressed with running harder and faster than the other team. It gets addressed by having quality when it's needed. And this team massively lacks it. And it's a real concern. Big test coming at the end of the season, in my opinion, of Eddie Howe's tenure at Newcastle United. Let me know in the comments below whether you think Eddie Howe will be Newcastle manager next season, or whether you think this could be his last. And do you think that Eddie Howe's capable of turning this around? I'm not going to have a go at you if you do. I'm not going to have a go if you think Eddie Howe's going to turn this around. More power to your elbow. I've not seen enough from this manager and from these players this season so far. We're nearly in January, by the way, and I've given it a long time. I didn't write them off in the first 2 weeks of the season. I've given it a long time. I've not seen enough from this squad to tell me that they're going to finish in a European place or win a trophy this season, unless we go and sign 3 or 4 brilliant players in January. But Eddie Howe won't sign the players we need. He'll sign the players he wants, and it'll just be more of the same, copy and paste, sprinters, athletes, big, strong lads, no technical ability. And that's what Newcastle are lacking right now. But let me know what you think about this mess in the comments. How disappointed were you in the performance and the result last night? Where do you think we're going to finish? Let us know. Drop the comment, then like and subscribe. Keep it ever more. I'll be back with a preview for the Burnley game, which I'm not even confident we'll win. That's how bad we are this season, that I don't think we could beat Burnley away at Turf Moor. And that's awful. Burnley fans would be shocked to hear that from a Newcastle fan. They really, really would. But let us know what you guys think about everything. I hope you're having a cracking festive break period between the work times. Bit of a weird kind of limbo situation right now. But football is back soon. I've got a wedding to go to as well, so I'll be getting my glad rags on, having a few bevies, but I will be back for the live post-match to Burnley. Don't worry about that. But thanks for watching, everybody. Have a belter, and I'll see you later. Cheers.
Heroes celebrate. They have done it.